In this episode, I am joined by Kourtney Kitt, and she is going to tell you all about how she unlocked new levels of happiness and success from life coaching and her first round of the paradigm. You ready? Let's do it. Hello, you are listening to the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. I'm Kelly Youngman, and I am the life coach for performers. I help actors, singers, and dancers love themselves and their lives way more. So keep listening to learn how you can love your life both on and off the stage. Hello, and welcome back to the Love Your Life as a Performer podcast. I'm so excited to be joined by Kourtney Kitt, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and to say hello.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Yes, my name's Kourtney Kitt, and I can't wait to chat.
So Kourtney is currently on the Hamilton tour, one of them.
The Philip tour.
The Philip tour, yay.
Yeah.
And she was also a member of the January 2024 round of the Paradigm. And so I am so excited to just share some of your journey and your experience of the work. So I guess I'm like, where do I want to begin? What was your entry point to wanting to do this work?
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so my journey with Paradigm, I'm trying to remember how it even started, but I recall following you for a while on Instagram and just seeing stuff you were posting, and it was always exuding this like positivity and forward movement mentally and literally in your career. And I was like, that's interesting. And I'm not even sure how long I followed you, probably for months, if not years. And I think I had just been emphasizing some of your messages because I agreed with them, like, yes, okay, cool. And then we would run into each other sometimes at auditions. And I definitely was interested, but I never took the leap. And then I think it started by you actually reached out to me and you were like, hey, why aren't you taking the leap into this? And it was kind of the like amp up that I needed, because I tend to get nervous when it comes to long-term commitments for time-wise. I was like, 6 months feels intimidating. And we talked about it and you DM'd me and you were like, just tell me all the reasons that are holding you back from doing this. And we talked about that. And then you gave me time to think about it. And then I decided to dive in. And it was the best decision I've ever made. And I honestly talk about it all the time.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
on tour, with friends, with family. I was talking about it yesterday with a family friend I connected with to get coffee here in LA, and just how much it changed my life.
Wow. Oh my God, Kourtney, I just got chills.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you spoke to this a little bit, but I think a lot of people, and it's totally normal human behavior, to see something that resonates, to have an inkling that it could be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you were in that limbo space, or what was that like for you? Were you aware that you were in a limbo space with it, or no?
Not really. I think that I had some interest, but it almost felt subconscious. Like it was just something that you see. It's so easy to see content, and there's so many things on social media. So it's kind of hard to filter out unless you're really focusing on it. And I wasn't focusing on it per se. I was just seeing it in passing and being like, oh yeah, that's cool. Okay, that's interesting. That's neat. Moving on, and kind of like swiping, if you will. And then when we talked about it and I actually had to pause and focus on it instead of letting it be so passive, I think that's what really like helped me zoom in and consider it and actually learn about what it was. I had seen it and just didn't actually know the depths of what it was. And then, like I said, I think committing to working on yourself in a finite amount of time, like a concentrated, decisive way of working on yourself, can be really scary. And I know for me, that was like, okay, what happens if I do this for a month and I'm like, I'm over it? Or what happens if I do it for 2 months and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore? And then can I get out of it? Like, is there an escape plan? What if, like, the what ifs started like zooming into my head, and it's expensive. Do I want to invest in myself and my future in that way? Because I didn't necessarily think of it that way until we talked about it a little more. And you helped me find that comfortability in the thought of it and taking action. And it was really, I do feel like it was totally up to me. There was no pressure. It wasn't like a, hey, I'm selling this thing and you have to do it. It was like, hey, this is the opportunity that's in front of you. Let's talk about what's holding you back. And then you decide, like, actually take some time and you decide if this is for you. And I really did. I like sat on it for a little while, probably a couple days. And I thought about it and I just really didn't have any solid reason because money, I think, obviously is a big part of what holds people back. And I just had this like echo in the back of my brain that was like, this could be a really great thing if you would choose to invest in yourself. Because so many times we throw money into these like quick, instant gratification things that work for a moment. But then I just felt like something was incomplete. Like I wasn't fully settled or happy in my patterns. I was okay, but I was like, there's probably more that I could unlock. And when I really sat down and thought about it, it felt worth it. So I decided to overcome that fear
Mm,
financially to see what it was about,
yeah.
and hope and like lean into the faith of it being like, okay, let's just like go into this with an open mind instead of like fear.
Thank you so much for sharing that so openly and honestly, because I think that's like really everyone's brain when we make
Yeah,
decisions, right? Especially if we haven't taken time to sort of examine our decision making process, but to be like, okay, what's the out? What if I don't like it? Right? Like all those what ifs. And then like understanding and deciding, like, yeah, those what ifs are always going to come up. And I just get
right.
to decide also how I engage with them and like what you make them mean. If you sort of internalize those as like a sign to stop, you will. And again, it's not good,
Right.
bad, right, or wrong, but it's like when you start practicing and learning that, like, oh, it's okay to have those totally normal human brain fears come up, and actually overcoming that obstacle is the first step towards transformation, right? I feel like
Absolutely.
we've talked about it a lot, but it's like how we do one thing's how we do everything. And so I'm excited to talk about like how did things start shifting right away, Kourtney, once you joined the container?
I would say I always compare the work we did to going to the gym, but for my mind, because at first, I think it's like anything. You're learning the ropes, you're showing up, you're talking to these people in the groups, you're talking one on one and like learning how to let go enough to like not only take in the information, but also to export what you need to offload to grow. And like getting into the flow of learning how to do that takes a minute. So it was like a couple months in, it was like, all right, we're doing the exercises, we're doing the prompts. I'm learning my footing here. And then a few months in, I remember the shift I felt when I was like, oh my gosh, this is working. Like I feel like my soul's on fire. I just felt unstoppable. I still do. And we ended our container in July. And it was actually the day I flew out to this tour that I booked. And it felt so full circle. And I just felt like I had a whole new toolkit on how to access these pathways to navigate my life in a better way. And I remember in the container after a couple months and doing the prompts and using them in real life, how I could unlock different potential. And it's totally up to us. But like I said, it felt like going to the gym for my mind. And it just taught me how to really like work out those muscles of like redirecting, renavigating, and really owning every choice that I make and feeling good about it. Whether the result turns out how you want it or not, that's okay. That's life and it's going to happen. Sometimes things don't turn out how you wanted or how you thought, but then learning how to accept that and turn it into something that's beneficial instead of being like, my life sucks. I didn't get this thing. Well, and the weather sucks today and I wanted to do this. It's just totally helps you reframe, but it's actively working that muscle so that it's easier to do. And it takes time. So doing a 6 month container, and it was my first time doing it, I think it was amazing because it took that much time for me to really see the shift and feel it and
Mm.
the work for it to work. I mean, a couple months in, we could have stopped, but it did nothing but help me grow by continuing. And I will do it again. Like I'm sure I'll do another container at some point. But it's just, it was wild how I could feel and see the transition of like the reframing of my mind and how I go into life now.
Wow, Courtney, you just explained that so beautifully because I think that's absolutely true. Like, we could have stopped at 3 months and you could have seen results. But the reason why I love 6 month containers is because, yeah, it gives you that time to not only feel and see the shifts, but then really integrate it and like still have space for ups and downs to come. But where you have the space to practice the tools while you're being held. So then it becomes like
Yeah.
such a part of you. And I fucking
Yeah.
love that you're feeling so on fire even months after the container
Yeah.
finished. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, it was honestly life-changing. And it happened, I think, people say about timing and how everything happens when it's supposed to. And it really did. Like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And then I hopped in at the beginning of the year and it just felt so kismet on like, okay, we're starting at the beginning of the year. People make New Year's resolutions, etc. I think even symbolically, people mark that as a very like poignant time to make change.
Mm.
And not that I was doing that, but it felt like it fell into my lap and the opportunity just synced into good timing. And then having it come full circle when a new career opportunity had unfolded that I wasn't ready to do when we started the container. I didn't want to go on tour. I didn't want to leave all the things that I just bought for my home. And I didn't know what I wanted. And I was kind of lost in my performance life and my identity within performing and, watching friends book Broadway and all these things. And I wasn't really sure where I fit in or what I wanted, how to figure that picture out. And throughout the container, that picture became clearer. And it was quieting the comparison and all this stuff. And I really leaned into what I wanted. And I was better able to not guilt myself into, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Well, if that person's doing this, I just kind of helped all that noise disappear. And then as I was healing and working through the paradigm, it really helped me focus in and see what I was available for. It opened up the availability within me to show interest in the work again. And
Yeah.
I ended up reaching out to people I wanted to work with, which people are afraid to do whatever. And I just created the space for what I wanted when I was ready for it, because I wasn't ready for it 6 months before. And then throughout doing that work, I became ready for it. And I presented the opportunity to the people I wanted to work with. And I was like, hey, I don't want to force this, but I'm available and ready. And I wasn't ready before when you asked me to do it. But I'm telling you now that I'm ready. If you want me, when you want me, I'm available. But I want it to be at the right time when it's supposed to happen. So now I'm officially available. And they called me 2 days later. So that was because of
Courtney.
the work.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm getting so many chills. And like, as we're talking, because it has been a minute since we've caught up, I'm like
Yeah.
starting to remember all these little things. But like, there were also like other things, even outside of performing, maybe performing
Oh, yeah.
adjacent, that happened in the container that you started putting your name in the ring for. Could you speak a little bit to some of those things?
Um, I'm trying to think, excuse me. Do you mean like in my personal life outside of performing?
Well, and also just like in running for council,
Oh,
in like
yeah. That was amazing.
in like also someone had reached out to you about doing like a workshop. Like there were all of
Yes.
these
Yes.
bigger opportunities that came. And like you, I feel like, and again, I want you to tell it in your words, but I feel like there were
Yeah.
so many moments where you got to kind of pause and be like, wait, can I do this? Like, is this for me? Like, am I ready? And I
Yeah.
feel like there was a lot of growth in those different circumstances.
Totally. Yes. So much happened. It was wild because we were talking about things in paradigm and these like assignments that you would get and goals almost. And one of my things that I was afraid of going into was the financial part and like how is work begetting work and what am I going to be doing? And then as we worked on that and like unlocked this potential and this true belief of like money comes to me easily and work flows to me easily and I am worthy of work, I'm capable of working in these big projects. I had multiple things happen out of seemingly nowhere. I filmed my first voiceover And the person who produced it reached out to me because she had seen me in a show years before and said she wanted to work with me. And out of nowhere was like, hey, remember years ago when I ran into you and said I wanted to work with you? The time is now. I want to work with you. And I booked my first voiceover. And I was scared, but I was ready because I felt like I was prepared. I have everything I need. I have that belief in myself that I was like, I am totally worthy and capable of this work. And it changed. I used to be very fearful going into new projects. Like I almost entered the room in that stereotypical, like entering the room apologizing with my body language of like, I'm not sure, maybe they'll like me if I'm like meek and really nice, and just then they'll have to like be like, well, at least she's really nice. And now I enter a room with confidence and like, okay, hey, I'm not sure if I nailed that. Can we talk about it? Kind of thing. And it's just, I'm bringing a different energy into space now. Um, Not that the old Kourtney was bad. It's just, this is a new one. And I'm so there for it. And so I did this voiceover. And then right after the voiceover filmed, I think we were doing a challenge to make a certain amount of money in.
The 5K in 10-day challenge.
Yeah. And I was like, that is absolutely bonkers. There's no way. And then shifting the belief to like, yeah, I'm available and ready to work. I got a voiceover from someone I hadn't talked to in about a year and a half. That, you never know if people are mean it when they will say they want to work with you, but then believing that they do is another shift. And then after that, someone who I had met years before at one dance event with my first agent years and years and years ago is developing a new Broadway show that's supposed to be coming to Broadway in the next season, like in a year or so. And they were doing a lab or like a workshop, like a pre-pro type of experimentation. And they reached out and asked me to do it. And I was like, what? These are things I'm not auditioning for. They just remembered my character and who I am as a person in space and in the room and wanted to work with me again. And it was all of a sudden in the same span of time creating all this work. And I was like, yeah, I would love to do this like experimental, like find new life for this show that I had seen existed in the past from social media. And I couldn't believe they were asking me to be a part of it. And then when I showed up to that specific like experimental space, I realized they didn't even hire me as a dancer. And I would consider myself primarily a dancer, but I've been wanting to expand into bigger spaces. I showed up for this lab work, etc. And I was covering a lead and I had to learn lines. And I walked in there and I remember shifting my mental space being like, you are completely capable of being a lead. And there were producers, they were pitching this to people who are going to be funding this show. So even though it was just a moment in time in a studio, there were people as a part of this, the future of this show that were in the room that were important. And outside of that, it was more important for me to show up for myself and prove that I'm totally capable of this. Like, you have to believe it first. And I shifted and I was like, okay, I don't just have to be the dancer in the back. I can be the person singing the song and doing the acting in the front. And I showed up, I learned my lines, and I showed up every day ready to go. And it was so fun, but it did challenge me. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome in the beginning. And then I just worked with like everything we had, those new like synapsy connections that we were working on in the paradigm. I was like, I am totally capable of being a lead. Like, hell yeah, this feels like a hell yes. So I was like, all right, I'm leaning in to the point where there were younger dancers in the experience asking me about my career, how I got to where I was, and like acting and whatever. And I was like, I'm a dancer. And they were like, what? No, like you're a lead. And it was just so wild to have this unfold in real time while we're doing the paradigm, and just so many opportunities. And then people are reaching out to me, you should run for council for equity. And I was like, what? I can't run for council. I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, no one knows what they're doing at first, but you learn. And all these people believed in me. So I thought about it and I tried and I almost won. I lost by 70 votes, which was really not bad for your first time running for anything. And it felt really empowering to be supported by everyone else running on my slate, learning about elections and being involved in it. And I was scared because I was like, I feel like an imposter again. But then I was like, I'm capable of helping this. I care about our union. I care about my friends, my people, myself. I want this to be a better space. And I always say, like, be the change you want to see. Now I get an opportunity to do that. Whereas instead, in the past, I might have been like, oh my God, I feel pressured because this person messaged me and I think they're cool. So I think I should do this. I have to do this. And I don't have time and it's stressing me out. And now I have to do this assignment and I have to get 20 people to sign this petition to vote for me to even get on the, it could have been just like a whole spiral of negative.
Mm.
And instead I shifted it into this whole like, this is so exciting. I have a slate of people behind me to support me. I'm not running alone. And I met all these wonderful people in the industry now, and I have new resources unlocked for when I don't know what's happening in the union. And it's just the potential and the mindset, like the framing, the way you frame your life is just so powerful. And I really didn't realize that. Like I couldn't unlock why that was important until I did the work in Paradigm over 6 months. Because people have tried to tell me, like I've grown up with my mom being like, you need to be positive. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? Like
Mm.
a simple soundbite of being like, you should do this doesn't help. You should be
Mm.
positive. It's like, okay, great. If I spill my coffee, what am I going to say? Like, oh, lucky me. I might have gotten a stomach ache if I had that coffee. So now my day's better. Like that's kind of what I feel like being like, be positive and walking away is. But then like doing the paradigm, it could be like just learning how to reframe like a better scenario. Like, oh, I spilled my coffee, and when I went to get a second one, I ran into my friend, and I wouldn't have seen them if I didn't get to go to that cafe. Like little things of just noticing. It's not toxic positivity, but it's truly just reframing how to lean in to this better life. Like it's a higher elevation. Like your frequency is higher, and I think that's why it begets like positivity and work and connecting with people. Like it really does work.
Oh my gosh. As you were talking, Kourtney, I swear you like pulled that sentence out of my head because I do think like from the outside, when you're not in the work itself, it can sort of become like this soundbite or this idea of toxic positivity when
Mhm.
really it is just like the invitation to exist on a higher elevated frequency, like you said. It's just a totally different experience. And it's not about forcing anything and it's not about
Right.
pretending at all. It's just about giving yourself an avenue to a more authentic happiness that actually is
Yeah.
available all of the time. And you said
And it
that just
teaches
like
you how to
so,
do that.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't think people realize that, like, at least now, I think if you can figure that out on your own, props. But I think in the fast-paced world we live in, with social media and everything, just there's so many distractions, I think most people probably do need help figuring out how to do that because we're taught to just go, 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 and you should do this, and you should. And so many times you'd be like, shoulds are soggy. I have said that a million times to my friends now. I'm like, oh, well, I shouldn't. I'm like, shoulds are soggy. Tell me what that means. What do you want to do? And like using this in real life. And I always tell people too, after I did and during Paradigm, I was like, I know from the outside, it probably looks like this, like woo woo, like, yeah, I'm drinking the juice, but you also don't have to do anything you don't want to do, even within the container. You do what you decide to unlock and what you follow through with. It's like anything, like if you show up, you're going to get something out of it and you can take what you want. It's not this forced, like, kumbaya, toxic positivity thing where I think people are just afraid at first, honestly, of unlocking the potential that they have because it can be scary and intimidating to believe wholeheartedly in yourself and access to positivity and goodness. Like that can be
Mm,
intimidating because it's
mm,
easier sometimes to just close the door and walk away
mm,
and move on to the next chapter instead of like working through it, I think.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kourtney, you're on tour now, and you had toured
Yeah.
previously, right?
Yeah. I
How
have.
has it been different the second time around as this new version of you?
It has been night and day. This is a whole different experience. It's wild. And I'm so grateful to be here again and get to relive this opportunity in a new way through like a new lens because I didn't hate my time touring. This is my third tour. And the second time around, I didn't love the experience. And I think it can be hit or miss based on the people you're around, the places you go, where you're at mentally. And it was kind of just the perfect storm. And that's why I took so much time away and didn't really know where I was at in my interest in that part of my career. And then when I felt like I was ready to come back, I had this like openness that was like, okay, I'm going in. I want to be there. I want to do this show again and I want to enjoy it. I deserve to enjoy this. So many people want to be in this show and I get a second chance to do it. How lucky am I? In a new
Mm,
track at that. So I knew it was going to be different and it has been worlds different. I think it was a mixture of a lot of things, but just the outlook I have. And one, it's helped me reframe how I intake information, especially being a performer, being on tour can be hard because you're constantly throwing yourself into newness, new people, new space, new show, new track. And you can have a lot of negative input if you let it come in, like, oh, that person doesn't like me. Well, what did I do? And then you get down on yourself because you lose sight of reality when you're in this little orb of show, and this is your work, this is your family, this is your life now because you're
Mm.
surrounded by it. And it can really bog you down if you don't have the right mindset. And I came into this ready and like excited to be here. And everyone was so kind right away. Learning the show again was so different. I was in fear the whole time I learned the show the first time. Obviously,
Mm.
having a base foundation of understanding of this type of show and this work helped, but it was totally different. I was so scared the first time. I'm not good enough. I'm going to get fired. This is terrifying. This dance captain hates me. I don't know what I'm doing. There was so much I can't, I won't, I can't, like it, fear. And this time around, I was like, just take it one number at a time. There was
Mm.
still moments where like doubt creeped in and I was like, do they like me? Like, and they kept being like, take your time. We got nothing. It was wild. Even just receiving what like the energy you put out is what you get back in. They were like, you're great. Like, yeah, if you want to do this number again, let's try it again. You have any questions? I was like, what? Like, we have time. We're taking our time and you're just here to support me, and accepting that and being like, okay. And
Mm.
then I trusted this creative team right away. Whereas in the past, I was more like fearful because I was so worried about them liking me and thinking I was brilliant and just attaching these titles that don't matter. I
Mm.
already got the job, and here it's just gives you space to learn it and really ask questions. And I leaned into that. And then I learned the show. I didn't punish myself every time I left the studio and like, okay, I've got to go drill this right now. Like I would do a little bit of work, but then I'd be like, all right, let's put it away. Let's be a full access human. Let's be a regular person and a performer. This doesn't have to consume you to the point where you get depressed in a hotel room because you're drilling this work into your brain to the nth degree and you're just at
Mhm.
a mental block and need to stop. I didn't
Yeah.
do that this time. And then when I debuted, I truly just went number by number. And then when I got to do it a second time and I had pages of notes, because this is a very meticulous show, I literally just took it number by number. Instead of, I think sometimes when we get notes in shows and stuff, it's like the music starts and you're like, okay, I've got 15 things I have to fix today. And then you just start messing it up in tandem because you're thinking 4 pages ahead. And I was like,
Mm.
I'm doing sentence by sentence and I'm enjoying this. And it changed the game. I said a couple weeks in to my friends, I was like, I didn't know you could enjoy doing this show. I was living in a state of stress doing the show, and I'm having so much fun now. And it's because it's a result of the work and reframing my mind. And I love going to work every day. It's different. Like my body feels better because I'm not constantly like shoulders up to my ears. I love my job now. I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know, and I've done it. So that's like it speaks to it because I did this job before and I hated it. And I love my job now. And
Oh,
it's awesome. It's the best feeling. Yeah.
Courtney. Oh my God, I could cry.
Yeah.
Oh, how
It's
fucking
really
cool is that?
powerful. Yeah. And I'm just so grateful because I think it's so easy to get jaded. And it's something I almost walked away from. I was like, screw that. And I think I probably said to you, I had made a decision. I'm sick of having experiences and looking back on them and resenting it. I deserve better. I want to reframe that and change that. And then I feel I did the work to do that. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
changing the narrative. I don't want to live in this like resentful space because I've worked in a lot of really great spaces and let a few negative interactions or things ruin it in my mind. And that's what I decided to remember it as. And then I think you might have said in one of our sessions, you were like, you get to decide how you hold that memory and how you choose to think about that experience. Like it doesn't have to be that traumatic. Not to say that like you erase the realities of some things that happen, but you were like, you don't have to hold on to it that way if you don't want to. And I had never even thought about that. It's like, I don't have to let it be this negative boulder that's sitting in this river of possibility for me. I can just like move past it and decide to not let it be so big and so bad. And once I realized that and slowly implemented that thought, it changed the game for me. I was like, oh my God, I get to look back and have like, I can't believe I had that opportunity. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but how cool that I am one of 50 people in the world that got to do that. And then I got to do it again. It's just so cool because I don't want to live my life with all these negative things weighing me down. I get to choose how I remember that and how I get to keep that for me, you know?
So good.
Yeah.
Kourtney, you mentioned like also the balance of yes, being a performer and also being like a full as human. Like how has the work sort of shaped that experience for you as well? Like getting to enjoy your personal life more. Like how does that impact that?
Yeah. I feel like work-life balance in a performance space is tough, especially because I think performers tend to be not only people pleasers, but perfectionists. And we talked about that a lot in the paradigm because there were a lot of us fighting that perfectionism and like, I don't know. Often would be like, I don't know if I did the assignment right. And you're like, stop trying to make it so perfect. Um, and I think that balance comes from one, trusting yourself in the work that you do and how you show up while you're at work. I pride myself in showing up in a professional way. And if I can't, I'll call out, knowing it's okay to call out. I have already called out once because I felt like I needed a mental health day one day. And in the past, I would have never done that because I'm like, what will people think? What, whatever. And that helps with your work-life balance. I couldn't have showed up to work in a professional way and done my job well when my personal life needed some attention. I was like, there's no prize for burnout. And my personal self is telling me that I need some TLC. So I took the morning and it was totally fine and it was the right decision. When I want to lean in and like do something nice for myself on a day off, if I want to go get a nice meal, I'll go do that and enjoy the hell out of it because why not? Like if I'm going to do it, I'm going to lean in and enjoy it. And it's just helped. Honestly, those little things help your work-life balance. You know, I meet more people now on tour. When I go out, I'm not afraid to have experiences and like start conversations with people. And it kind of helps disconnect from only talking about work and only being consumed by the show you're doing and being at the theater all the time, getting out of the space. Yeah, I just feel like there's a total different understanding of how to show up in a better way, asking for work that I want to be in. If I see projects now, I'll reach out to casting or people I know working on the project and be like, hey, I'm so interested in that if any opportunity ever arises. And that helps my personal life because I'm not consumed by my performance life because I have that on lock and I feel in control of it now. So I can leave it at home and go enjoy my life. Because I feel like most people have a span of time where it's like all they can do and think about is when's my next show? What's my next show going to be? Oh my God. Okay. Broadway announcements just came out for the next show. Oh my God. Why isn't that me? And it's like being able to just be like, that's awesome. These 5 people are making their debuts. That's really exciting. I'm happy where I'm at. And that blends the personal and professional, but it feels so good to be able to watch people elevate and do things that you want to do and still can, and know that because they're succeeding in a space that you want to doesn't mean that like there's a scarcity mindset that you can't. I can be happy in my space and celebrate you in your space and know that this timing is working out and I can still enjoy my life and I'm not being left behind because you're making your Broadway debut. That helps my personal life, you know?
Oh my
And that's
gosh.
a skill I learned. Like it really does help because I think that was something that you've touched on before a lot. Like, how do you celebrate other people's successes in this industry when it can feel very easy to compare? And I was like, I want to be able to do that and mean it. Not just be like, I'm
Mm.
so happy for you. It's great. You know, and like actually mean it and like
Yeah.
feel joy when I still want to be there, but it's different. It's different and it's awesome.
Kourtney, oh my gosh, you've been so open and generous with everything that you've shared. Is there any
Thanks.
last parting words of wisdom that you would want to offer to anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of life coaching and the paradigm specifically. I had never done life coaching before. I thought it was all bullshit, to be honest. I go to therapy. I think it's totally different. And I think it's totally worth exploring. We invest in so many things and spaces that we think are going to help ourselves, and doing the work in a space that really blends your mental health, which can affect your physical health and your emotional health, is so worth it. This was the best thing I've ever done for myself thus far. And it affected my personal life, my mental health, and my professional life in such a positive way that just unlocked access to everything I want. And I know I can access it now, and I know I'll get all the things I want because of the work that I've done. I truly believe that. And I couldn't say that at the beginning of the year. So if you're thinking about it, I think the best thing we ever did was just have a chat before I even signed up for anything. Like, the fact that you were open and available to have a chat and be real and offer that space is so important. So I think anyone listening, if you're thinking about doing it, if you've done it before and you feel like you need a refresh, do it. It's investing in yourself in the best way. And I just can't speak highly enough of it. It's changed my life, and I can't wait to do it again. So thank you for having me. This work is the work. Yeah.
Thank you, Kourtney. Like, so honored by all of that. And that's why I fucking love this work. Because it really is like, this is the transformation that people have over and over and over again in their own ways at the right time for them. And I'm just so honored that you said yes, and that you gave yourself permission to have this level of availability to your own joy and happiness and success in all that you're freaking creating.
Thanks. Yeah, well, thank you. Can't say it enough.
Kourtney, thank you so much for being here. If everyone wants to find you or connect, where's the best place for them to do that?
Probably my Instagram. My Instagram handle is my name. So Kourtney with a K, KOURTNEY_LK. That's my Instagram, and I'm on it all the time. It's the only social media I actually use. So that's where you can find me.
Okay. Amazing. All right, everyone. That's our episode for this week, and I'll meet you back for another one. Bye. Hey, I want to invite you to get started, because if this is blowing your mind, imagine the impact of when we actually work together. You get to love your life as an actor, singer, or dancer, even including auditions. And if that sounds amazing, come join us inside of Momentum. You get lifetime access to the Performers Plan, coaching, community, and more, and I will be supporting you the entire way. Go to kellyyoungmanwellness.com/momentum to join us now.